All right, let's get on with the story. If Ambrose Bierce was still working on the Devil's Dictionary, I believe he'd define technology these days as something like this: the collective belief that of mankind that masturbation can be continually improved upon at the cost of our humanity. In that sense, I once had the dubious honor of participating in what could be called the world's largest circle jerk, an international club of over 10 million faceless diddlers. That was where I was going to use onanism. Known as World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is a massive online game where you get to pick and customize a magical little man or woman, give them a job that involves beating the hell out of everything in your way, and go on fantastical adventures with people you can pretend you'd like to spend time with in real life. True to its masturbatory nature, it was something I did, and I knew a lot of people I knew did it too, but for God's sake, you didn't talk about it. In World of Warcraft, like a lot of these games, gold is the currency you use for it. And you get gold usually by killing things. But to get the really good stuff in the game, you know, the big weapons and stuff, you have to have a lot of gold, which generally means hours and hours of clicking the same bullshit monster over and over until you're pretty sure your ass is fused to the chair. This time-consuming and depressing upon reflection process is commonly known as grinding. The same repetitive action ad nauseum until your brain has been ground down to the lever of a sedated lemur. Some genius in China, however, rightly assumed that a lot of Americans lacked the patience to do this and would pay real American money for fake Warcraft money, and gold farming was born. Thousands of people in China now spend their whole day grinding for companies and selling the gold off to lazy Americans. While playing the game, I was contacted by a gold seller whose name in the game was Demi. I told the person no, I didn't want to buy any gold. However, being a little stoned and curious, I started to ask a few questions and had some small talk and told him good night. I'd never used this service before, and so I was kind of curious why they talked to me, but whatever. A week later, this Demi found me again in the game, and instead of trying to sell me gold, started telling me about her day. Eventually, we spoke through Microsoft Messenger, where I found out her real name was Hu Wei Fang, and she lived in Kaifeng, China. She was in her early 20s, a recent college graduate, and lived with her parents. She told me she had gotten a job to improve her English, as that was her major in college. Finally, she told me she was terrified of her boss, who'd tell her if she didn't make a sale every day, she'd be fired. After a year of working there, her dreams of using this as a springboard to career was replaced by a dull routine and inertia we often get in dead-end jobs. Due to the time difference, I was generally coming home from the bar while she was working. As I tried to save my liver with a veggie burrito, she'd tell me about the minutiae of her life, her concerns and hopes. In time, more of these gold sellers found and spoke to me through Microsoft Messenger, and a strange phenomenon began. These faceless screen names with their poor English began to disappear, replaced by people who were shockingly like me. These people were almost all women in their early 20s who were recent college graduates. Well, come on. Guys aren't going to buy from other guys. They'd gotten their job either out of desperation for money or to learn more English. When I'd explained to them that speaking to gamers might not be the best way to learn the language, they'd shoot 50 emoticons and acronyms at me, generally implying that I was being silly. At least I think that's what they said. They generally made anywhere from $200 to $600 a month and be fired if they didn't make a sale every day. Some were wild successes. A seller who called herself Melinda, but her real name was Ling, had been selling gold for 2.5 years. She lived in Changsha in the Hunan province. She'd studied ballet as a child, but was now working as her own boss, making $1,500 a month. Had her own apartment. By the way, $1,500 in China is a crazy amount of money. And she only worked 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, instead of the usual 6-day, 10-hour work week every other gold seller had. But I also got to meet the failures. One woman I spoke to, going by the screen name for some reason of Dan Ruth, whose real name was Yi, who, like Ling, also lived in Changsha. When I spoke to her, she was only making $200 a month. She had not made a sale that day and just been screamed at by her boss for 10 minutes straight. She had gotten the job because she had trouble finding anything else. Apparently, China is now filled to the rafters with college graduates, and a bachelor's degree means even less there than it does here. She told me she lived with her parents and it had been her birthday the week before. Her last words before the conversation ended was, "I must go now. My boss is looking at the screen." The next day, I got an email from her telling me she had been fired for talking to me on company time. I reread the email several times as I tried to fully grasp the implication of what had just occurred. A somewhat unsurprising wave of guilt hit me, but I squashed it as quickly as I could because I recognized what it meant if I let myself feel guilty. Guilt meant responsibility. It would mean I had a personal stake in the well-being of a person who lived thousands of miles away, who I didn't know particularly well, hadn't even known existed 3 days before. I just wanted to turtle up, forget I'd ever spoken to this person, and push her back into a screen name and a minor annoyance. I wrote her back anyway, asking how she was, sending my condolences, etc., etc. Words are cheap, especially when typed out in a 3 a.m. email. I couldn't help but have a sinking suspicion that I just pulled a fast one on this lady, twisting her system to blow up in her face. I had taken a story from her, her job as well. And what'd she get in return? A drunk who sends her illogical messages late in the late hours of the night. I should have the balls to not care, to admit I don't want everyone in the world to be people to me, that I want them to just be screen names and, hard to understand English. Because if I see them all like I see these three people, I'd have to be invested. It means I'd have to care about all 6 billion of these fucking people out there. Every time I write Yi with words of encouragement, get asked by Hu Wei Fang if there's a lot of Chinese people in America, or get asked by Ling about what kind of dance moves are going on in America right now, I can't help but feel maybe this is my exchange with them. A mouth and an ear to convince them that they are human, when the rest of the world seems so determined to show them otherwise. Nothing but another payment given for services rendered.